All right. We are starting episode 333, halfway to the mark of the beast. This is the Artcasters. And when we triple numbers, there's usually a specific guest that we will get to. And as usual, before we announce our guest, who you guys are probably familiar with, I don't know. It's hard to tell because there's a mysterious mask covering our guest as we speak. Let's do the go rounds and let people know where to find our work. So I'll start. You're on my channel. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit the bell, all that fun stuff. And I just heard from my publisher; they're very happy with the sales numbers from the first printing of Jacob's Apartment. So I encourage you guys to go out there and keep it up. And this is also my son, Benjamin, who is up for some reason. Past his bedtime.
I know that kid.
Oh, it's okay, Ben. Do you want to let people know where they can find your work?
Okay, so guys.
You got to get in the mic, dude. Come here.
I was just walking with May because May just got home.
Oh,
well, Ben,
that's good.
Ben, I just want to know one thing, Ben. What do you think about the Instagram algorithm?
Oh, Jim was asking you what you think about the Instagram algorithm. What are your thoughts on that?
He's alive. I don't know what that is.
That's good.
Because I don't have Instagram.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you, Ben.
Jim said me either. Good for you. All right. So, so anyhow, if you haven't yet, pick up Jacob's Apartment. If that cute kid did not sell you on this book, I don't know what else could. And then Two Stories, which is my graphic novel that's autobiographical. And I wanted to, before we do the go rounds in any other fashion, do a little shout out to my recently deceased dog, which I know is not a fun way to start a stream, but I just thought it would be meaningful. Today we said goodbye to CK, and here's why that's relevant on an art stream. He is a dog that has, hold on a second, I thought I had this set up. Okay. He is the dog that is in Two Stories on page 34, CK Dexter Haven. So he is the silly dog that kind of wakes me up in the beginning of that chapter, and he's literally been with us for a long time. So anyhow, CK, this episode goes out to you in pug heaven somewhere. And
living that pug life.
Yeah, with that being said, I'm going to drop the mic and pass it to Scott. Scott, where can everybody find your work?
Yeah, you can find my work at. I feel like anyone see that bit with Casey Kasem talking about the dog dying? You ever see that?
Yes.
Oh no!
Really
like, hey everybody, my dog died.
After a dog dying.
This is ponderous.
All right, sorry. Okay. Yeah, you can find my stuff at circworks.com. You can also find me on my YouTube channel, Circworks. Just search Circworks on YouTube, and you'll find tons and tons of educational art videos. And there's a series called Making Comics 101 that'll take you every step of the process of making comics, from coming up with your idea all the way to printing, publishing, and every step in between. So definitely check that out. And then, like I said, on my website, there's tons of stuff, digital products for making comics and prints and all kinds of stuff. So you can check that out there. So yeah. Oh, and then I've got a Kickstarter coming up. It looks like I keep having to push it back. Things keep coming up, but it looks like it's going to be the second week of August is when I'm going to launch it. So just
a good time.
Just be aware that's coming.
So also, if you guys want to be aware that it's coming, you should sign up for Scott's newsletter. And also, I think that if you sign up, is that deal still going, Scott, where people can get...
Yeah, just go to if you go to my website, either on the top or the bottom, there's a thing that says learn how to make comics or something like that. That's the Comic Maker Starter Kit. You get that free digital set of tools for making comics, and it automatically enrolls you in my newsletter. And then you'll also be informed when the Kickstarter comes out, and informed early, because I'm going to have some some special stuff for people to jump on early, some remark covers and stuff like that. So
awesome. And I am convinced after seeing the decent sales numbers of Jacob's Apartment for the month, it's just 1 month. It's a first month, so that'll be hard to top. But my point is, because those sales numbers were somewhat decent for indie books, I feel like there's an army out there and I know a lot of them are Artcasters. So let's make sure we support and make this thing happen for Scott as well, right? I mean, like,
yeah, and when it happens, I'm
gonna
going to be
awesome.
promoting it a lot. I'll be doing some live streams and things like that, and probably trying to get on whoever show I can get on and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, but make sure you guys are subscribed so you get notifications when that's going to happen, because it's alternate covers and it's Young and the Dead, and we're getting closer to the conclusion of that, which is really exciting.
yeah.
All right, Corey, where can everybody find your work, dude?
You can find more work at CoreyKerr.com. And if you go to CoreyKerr.com/email, then you can jump onto my email newsletter, which is where I'm doing most of my stuff now. So I've released 2 comic strips on there in the last week or so. And anyway, I'm doing that. I am getting better response from the email newsletter list already just in the first week of launching it than I have in the last 5 to 10 years of Instagram. When did Zuckerberg buy Instagram? Because I can almost guarantee that's when, my numbers just fell off. They're just not showing my stuff. Anyway, I am done trying to please the algorithm gods, and so if you want to see my stuff, get on the email newsletter list. I will never send out more than 1 a week, but I'll try to send out somewhere between 2 to 4 a month. And it's good stuff. I don't know, a little brambly at the beginning, but I think I'm working out the kinks and getting some formats that I like. So I figured out how to do captions in a really fast way. That
I know. I was going to ask you about that. I'll have to find that off screen, because I noticed your captions and I noticed your transcripts and all that stuff. So
yeah, it's Premiere does it automatically.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so there's a couple of things that you have to do to kind of clean it up, but
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
YouTube's got real good at it too. I was surprised. There's a few things like, I don't know if it knows CircWorks, but certain things, but for the most part, it's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's the cool thing. That's the cool thing about Premiere is you can have it learn custom words and phrases and things. Anyway, but yeah, I'll probably talk about it at some point, because I think I've figured out how to do something that Adobe didn't intend, which is use it as a transcript in the newsletter, because they're just doing it for captions in the video. So when you spit it out, it spits out like time code and all kinds of weird stuff and weird line breaks and stuff. And so I figured out how to scrub all that. And anyway, so jump in for the 3rd episode of the newsletter after I figured everything out. And if you want to go see me figuring all that stuff out, you can look at the last 2 newsletters, which is also where my Ye Olde Modernity comics are. I just released one last night or this morning or something. So if you haven't seen that, go join the email.
I love it. And you guys will be enjoying Corey's new comics that are really amazing. And I think they're really cool. And I think he's on to something really cool with it. So check it out. Let's see. Without further ado, let me just drink from my Swizzle Stick Army mug for a second before I announce our next guest.
Oh, nice.
Which you can get at some store that I think might be mentioned shortly. Oh, my goodness. Look at that. It is Jim Lujan. I don't know if you guys have picked up on this, but anytime there are triple numbers, it's like drawing a pentagram on the floor of your room. Like, who do you think is going to come but Jim Lujan, indie animator?
Or like Beetlejuice. I would have gone
or
with
Beetlejuice.
You went with Satan. That's okay, but I would have gone with Beetlejuice. Even Candyman, maybe.
That's true. That's true. The
Bloody Mary.
Yeah, it's a fair point. So, Jim, we've said numbers 3 times, and you have magically appeared on this show to talk about projects. But before we get into that, Jim, why don't you let people know where they can find your work? There's a link to Jim's Patreon in the notes, as well as his YouTube, so you guys should all subscribe to that as well. But Jim, where can people find you? And also, if people are like, I need some Jim Lujan merch, where can they get that?
Well, you're going to go to Instagram for one and subscribe there because that's where I update the most. But jimlujan.com, that.com, will get you to my YouTube channel. And from there, I think there's also links in the bio to my Society 6 page. I think if you go to society6.com, that's where the lovely mug that this guy with the lovely mug himself is drinking out of. And yeah, I got lots of stuff there, lots of pillows. You guys, everyone likes a little pillow with their illo talk, you know what I'm saying? And Patreon. Go to patreon.com /Jim Lujan. And right now, if you're on Patreon, you've already seen a bunch of artwork from my next project called The Night Eats Its Own. Yes, that's right. There's already fully finished artwork up on that page. And there's some behind the scenes recording stuff. And there's a bunch of stuff on Patreon that's exclusive there. So you guys can see the making of my new film if you're interested. Good night, everybody.
I actually think that that is incredible, and the thing that I will always say is pretty awesome about Jim's work, aside from it just being really cool, is, man, can you come up with a title for a series? Like you've already got my interest just with that title. So
they have to be my approved. So if your wife approves them, then I'll go forward with the project. If not, forget it.
Yeah, that's a good point. She is a good barometer of whether you've succeeded. For anybody who's not in the know, basically anytime Jim comes up with a title for a cartoon and I mention it in the same room as my wife, there's just hilarious laughter in the background. Because, yeah, Jim comes up with really cool cartoon titles. So, Jim, where, so the topic is project to project to project, and you kind of pitch this topic, and I have a suspicion that I know what is kind of driving it, because I think it might be something we all kind of do. It could be considered a positive. It could be like considered potentially like not so great. So it's like it's this mixed, interesting topic from what I gather. So why don't you expound upon it so that we kind of kick it off. So what is the meaning of project to project to project?
Well, I was speaking to my good friend, artist David Cho, and he once told me, this is true, you're laughing, but he's not my good friend, but I met him one time. You know Rhodey?
Yeah.
They are good friends.
Oh, nice.
I met him one time, and we were talking, and we were talking about just addiction. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I have an addictive personality. He's like, you're addicted. And I said, to what? He said, to creating, to making your films. And he could just tell after meeting me for one hour, he could tell. And I said, oh, David, that's so Cho. That's so Cho. But I am fully addicted to creating my films, and I was talking to another great artist named Gary Hodges, or Godges, as I call it.
I believe his last name is pronounced Hodges.
Well, we also, in the business, we call him Jiho.
Oh, that's true, Jiho. That's
so
true.
Jiho, I was speaking with Jiho the other day, and we discussed the analogy of a shark, that you cannot stop swimming, although I just found out that some sharks do stop swimming. So,
oh, really?
What the hell with that?
I didn't know that.
But
they all stop swimming eventually.
And they're dead. You beat me to that.
You wanted to go there. Yeah.
Right. I don't know if you, Jim, I don't know if you know this.
When there's an orca in the water, they will stop swimming too.
One of these days, you're going to stop swimming.
Oh, no.
That is the worst Disney song I've ever heard in my life.
Just stop swimming.
From Finding Nemo 3.
I do feel like that would be a really
Finding
fun...
Nemo 3, Dory
Yeah.
dies.
I feel like that needs to be our new intro for Artcasters, where it's like, welcome to Artcasters, you all, we're all going to die. And with that, we're going to talk about creativity and art.
Josh, tell us what you're working on before you kick the bucket.
Yes.
Okay, so
welcome back to the Darkcasters.
The Darkcasters. Oh my gosh, we have to do that for like Halloween. I think in the future we should all dress super goth and do the Darkcasters and just do like the emo-ist show on the planet.
Well, I'm sure
and we can have like Dashboard Confessional playing in the background, just playing like Your Hair Is Everywhere, and just be like, "Ugh."
I prefer Bauhaus myself.
Well, yeah, that's true. If we're gonna go goth, that would be good. I was thinking more emo, but I like the idea of goth. Let's maybe get some Bauhaus in there, some Skinny Puppy.
So, back to the topic at hand. I was gonna say.
Yeah, so like projects. You're basically you were at Shark, and then we got derailed.
Baby Shark.
Oh, you can't say that around a parent. You can't. You say that around a parent, and it's just like for the rest of the show, I'm going to be fighting the urge to be like, don't. I can't. Okay, go on.
Yeah, both Jiho and I both agreed that we have this thing about when we finish creating something, we're so excited to start the next thing. In fact, we're already working on the next thing before we finish the current thing.
Yes.
And our promotion suffers because of that. We don't promote. Like I just finished Sugar Machine weeks ago. And already when I finished Sugar Machine, I was just already jumping on to this next project because I was excited about it.
Yeah.
And it is a good thing because you do get a lot of productivity about, you get a lot of productivity, but it's also not a good thing because you don't kind of stop and smell the roses and really promote your work like you need to promote. So in that way, it is definitely not a good thing. And it never has been because I've been doing this forever.
Have you ever smelled roses though?
I smelled Guns N' Roses.
That's a totally different smell, and one that often requires a shot afterwards. But
yeah, you also have to head over to like Paradise City to find.
Yes, I've smelled actual roses.
Yeah, I feel like it's overrated. I've smelled them, and I was like,
rose.
You know, I'm feeling like that is as equivalent and relevant of a take as your take on In and Out, Corey. So I'll just leave that there.
Corey hates all flowers and In and Out. Baby Shark.
I eat it In and Out often, and it's about as whelming as smelling roses. It's fine. I don't know if I'd stop to do it, but it's fine. If I'm there, I wouldn't go out of my way. But if I'm around a rose, I'll smell it.
Remember when a few years ago when Corey sued USA for Africa? That was horrible. So
I love it. I think this is a great topic because I am currently in the thick of it too.
Yes.
And like I have a deadline where I have to do 205. I have 205 pages left that I have to finish by April. And yet I also have a book that's been out for a month and the sales numbers were okay. But the reason they were okay was I did some promotion and I keep forgetting to do like a basic thing. Like I set like a goal where I was like, I'm gonna, when I get home before I work on stuff, I need to send out one press release and reach out to like one store about events. And then I'll do it consistent. I'll do that part consistently for like 2 days. And then it'll be like 5 weeks because I'm in creative mode on the next project. And it's like juggling that and the two mindsets that takes just drives me nuts. It's insane. And I am kind of with you on that, where I think the creative in us really wants to just kind of move on to like the next thing because it like we like making this stuff for whatever reason, you know. I don't know, Scott, do you find like that as a challenge too, like where, you know, hopping from project to project like as kind of like just a part of your personality? Because I'm guessing this is, I'm gonna take a wild guess and assume this is something we all kind of struggle with, but I don't know, Scott. Like, is that
Yeah
something
and
you
no,
have?
yes and no. I don't know. I think definitely you and Jim and maybe Corey. It seems to me like you start a project, you complete it, and then you move on to the next project. Where at least for me right now, it seems like I have various projects in various stage of development, all kind of, it's like right now, the things going on right now are, I've got a big, client project. And then I've got, which I guess you could, I guess you guys could compare that to your day job. So we'll take that out of the equation. But, I'm working on the Kickstarter, working on the two big things I got right now, I guess, working on the Kickstarter and working on my studio. And in the meantime, also coming up with ideas for the YouTube channel and stuff like that. Because I plan to, once the studio's done, really like double down on YouTube and really try to not be so much a victim to the algorithm and figure out how I can make it work for me and stuff like that and all that kind of stuff.
I'm feeling like Scott is kind of getting around to saying he's better than us.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I'm experiencing the same thing. I am currently, like, this is what you're looking at. This is the last few scenes of Shades, which I've been working on for a while and waiting on stuff, while I nuked my social media, started a newsletter, and started a webcomic strip.
True. Yeah. So yeah.
So I feel you, Scott.
I'm sorry.
I
What
don't
was
know.
that? Wait,
I
were
don't
we
know
doing a
what's-
show? I'm sorry. I just. Oh my goodness! I got distracted reading Captain Goggles and Mask Woman, the offset printed comic that Frank Salazar just sent me. So I just wanted to shout that out at the
I still
top.
have to get my copy.
I promised Frank I was going to do that. You guys should support Frank Salazar. He's a mod for my channel. He's a huge member of the Artcasters community. He's one of the kindest people in art and most supportive people out there. So get out there and support Captain Goggles and Mask Woman.
Hold that still for a minute. You're like waving it around like a Bible thumper.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a beautiful cover.
It is a beautiful cover, and it's a full color comic. It's got a full story in it. It's got the Tarocco branding on the back, and it's beautifully printed. And congrats, Frank. But anyhow, sorry for derailing the stream a little bit there. But I wanted to shout out
Robot card.
I'm halfway there, Jim.
A real life Tarocco about a month ago. We went up to this place called Arizona, where it's kind of like a wildlife animal park thing, and they were doing a show. And up until I didn't even know what a Tarocco was until Frank did his kind of created Tarocco Creative Cast. So, but now I've seen real Tarocco.
I remember Johnny Tarocco in ninth grade. That guy was unbelievable.
Whenever Jim does that voice, I have created a character in my head that is Jimmy the Lutz, which is like the mobster version of Jim Lujan. He's like, "Hey, it'd be a shame if you went on to your next comic and you had broken hands." Just
everybody knows I'm not a mobster. I'm a gangster.
That's true. That's true. But
and a lover.
I will say, I think all of us have had a conversation with Jim where he said it'd be a shame if you went on my Patreon and suddenly you go to draw your comics and you got no hands. I'm just saying that'd be a shame. Anyhow.
Hey, Corey, it'd be a shame if something happened to that bike, Corey. and hence, Corey learned his lesson. So being that I'm the guest in this house.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I think at the dinner table, I can bring up my point. I think I have this pretty accurate. You let me know what you think. Okay, as far as this project to project to project, need to keep moving, can't stop, won't stop. I believe Mr. Circlin has got it pretty well maintained, under control. I think he's really got a good perspective on it, a healthy perspective on it. Whereas I believe Mr. Kemble and Mr. Kerr and Mr. Lujan are
Unhealthy?
Gases, because we just keep moving, keep going. No, you know what though? Just me and you, Corey. We're jackasses. Actually, Josh, you kind of have it in a foot in both camps, because you do keep going project to project. You never stop, keep pushing yourself, but you're extremely good at promoting. So you kind of have, so like this would be like a diagram, of an evolutionary diagram going from Scott to Josh to Corey to Jim, which makes me the ape.
Which one of us is the, what is it? Is it a trilobite? Like the first, what was the first organism? I'm always forgetting. Anyhow, whatever. I can't.
Yeah, trilobites are those little, look like a little horseshoe things with.
I think that's one of the early ones.
What is it called?
I think Jim, if you're trilobite? An ape, yeah, then I'm a trilobite. That would be basically where we're at.
I remember Johnny Turocco used to eat them trilobites in class.
Whoa.
Just a trilobite.
So anyhow, I agree with you though. Like when I look at it, it's like I think I don't agree with you about your assessment of me. I think that might just be like the nature of, I don't know if like as creatives we're ever good at seeing our own strengths. Like, because to me, I feel like I fail at promoting all the time. Like again,
I don't think so. I think I have an outsider's perspective towards you, and I think you're excellent at promoting. You promote at the beginning of every show, of every stream, and then you also do a good job of refining your promotion. And Corey and I are not jackasses. We are brothers in ADD.
I'll own that. I'm terrible. If the definition of that is that you're terrible at promotion, I have probably made more things than I've shown publicly.
Yeah.
I think if you're count, I tend to finish things and then be like, it's done. And then I'm already 20% of the way through the next one. And
I'm guilty of that too. I kind of do something and kind of move on. And when,
although Scott, your stuff is more on a slow burn because your stuff is out. Well, as is mine, because your stuff is out there.
Yeah.
And it's to be discovered later. It doesn't.
That's true. Like, because anytime I do something out, I think we all do that. We'll probably put a YouTube video out, and people will discover those later or whatever. And then, so there's that. But I mean, Josh is good at like promoting not only what he's currently working on, but the past things that he's working on as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have had those times though where you like completely forget. It's like you'll forget you'll kind of forget like the things that you've worked on. And there's like a pile of stuff in the background, and it's like, so for me, it's like easy to maintain if it's like one or two things, but it's like, I've seen people who are incredible at just like anytime there's a window, there's like a drop for a product in an unartificial way. They're really good at it. A good example would be like Jim, mutual friend of ours, Dave Baker, I think has unlocked some magic gloves or something that give him superpowers, because like he does have a really incredible balance between like promotion and just kind of insane output. I don't know how he does it, but it's
somehow he takes the energy from his work, which is a lot, and he puts it into the promotion too. You could tell he puts a lot into the promotion.
Yeah, it's like really considered, and it's considerate to do, like for the audience, because I do think like it actually is a fair thing to tell people about your work. Like otherwise, how are they going to find it?
However, let me course correct everything in my life right now. Then, hey everybody, go to YouTube and watch Sugar Machine right now. Turn this off, and you're already at YouTube. Go watch Sugar Machine. Okay.
All right. Sugar Machine sells itself. Just the title. I mean, if that doesn't make you want to find out what it is.
If you don't like Sugar Machine, go watch Pleasure Beast. You'll like
so Unchained Aggression.
Yep.
Go watch an Unchained Aggression.
Or you want to see one of the most, I mean, all of these are great, but see one of my favorite Jim Lujan, see Cherries in the Snow. Or
Cherries in the Snow. Exactly. Very
classy. You want to go old school? You watch Mama, I'm a Thug. All of this is on Jim Lujan's channel
It's
among
free.
like 80.
There, it's free. It's free. We put this out for you.
So Jim,
about you.
So Jim, real quick, the thing that I think, so I think it can be a negative where it's like, you know, you can kind of forget to push the projects that are out there, and so they can kind of fall under the cracks. However, this is something you and I both talked about really recently. And I think it was because I've watched you kind of like, obviously, like your career kind of flourish and grow, and cool things happen to you, like getting to work with an Oscar nominated indie animator on a film. And a lot of this stuff that kind of naturally, more organically happens in your career, with you just kind of being faithful to like doing the art. And then I was noticing like one thing that almost felt like it was opening for me in a similar way with when I got the deal for Jacobs. And I think you and I were exchanging text messages or whatever, or messages on Facebook that weren't the regular chain of stuff that would get us both canceled, because we're, you know, doing those kind of text messages. I'm just kidding. But no, like where we were discussing, like I was just kind of mystified by the fact that there is this weird thing that happens when you start building a catalog of work where things just, it's almost like the universe pays you back. And I hate saying that out loud, because it's like, I don't want to make it sound like it's like The Secret or something like that. But I was asking you, like, because I was like, you know, you've had a lot of that kind of organic reward sort of thing happen for like just building such an immense catalog of work. And I asked you, I was like, Jim, is this just kind of how it, and you were like, oh yeah, totally, I experience this all the time.
Yeah.
So there is that like element to the kind of jumping from project to project. Do you want to kind of get into that, like some of the positives? I mean,
well,
also,
yeah,
you know, the positive of like your YouTube channel has what, 80 animations on it?
I don't know, probably a lot.
Probably over that, yeah.
A lot. One of the things I learned early on is that, and I learned this from a few different sources, is that when you do something nice for others, it kind of comes back to you, you know? But the key is, are you going to be doing nice things for others expecting something to come back, you know? That gets kind of shady there. But if you genuinely are promoting other people, it seems to shine back on you a little bit. I mean, I think that goes for everybody. As far as what I mentioned to Scott earlier about the work being out there, it's just out there to be discovered. That works too, because that happened to me. I mean, people see stuff that's been out there a while and they're like, hey, this is brand new to me. Or you give someone a DVD, in my case, and they watch it months later, then they go, oh, wow, this is good. And then they call you and good things happen.
Yeah. The more the more stuff you put out, the more you increase your odds of somebody finding it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, there's a lot of luck to it, but you can increase your odds by putting more stuff out there.
Exactly. Like when Scott came to California and he told me, come on, Jimmy, you know, you put out, good things are going to happen. And let's just say good things happen.
I mean, you ended up on Artcasters. That's how we get all our guests. I mean,
he said, you just got a one-way ticket to Circland. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy
I can't imagine a worse payoff.
Corey.
I want to shout out our chats real quick, just because I do find, like, much like you were saying, Jim, one of my weaknesses on this show that kind of relates to this topic is I will get so invested in the conversation that I forget to like acknowledge the awesome audience that makes this show possible during the show. And so like there will be people in the chats who've been commenting for like half an hour who wants.
Gary has a really good question, a really relevant question.
Yeah. This is for you, Scott. I think you might want to answer that. Oh. Gary was saying that you told him he was the only one.
Calling me out.
I love it. So, okay. So we've got Gary, Paul. I'm just going to name some of the people who showed up. Keeman, Jim. Jim's in the chats. Wait a minute, Jim. What are you doing in the chats? You're on the show. John Coyote. We got Frank. We got let's see here, Thomas Adams. Oh my goodness. And Jib. We got Jib from the other Artcasters joining us in the chats. Awesome. I love it. You guys should also be, obviously, if you guys are fans of the Artcasters, definitely make sure you're also watching Jeff Lafferty's stuff too.
We got Johnny 2 times. We got
we got Johnny 3 times. We got Johnny 5 times. So anyhow, so I just wanted to get, call you guys out because you guys do make this show possible and stuff like that. But what do you think? Do you like? I have to say there is something really impressive about like having a body of work, and I do think sometimes people will put the cart before the horse, and they'll want the kind of things that happen from building a body of work before they've built a body of work. And I only say this because I was actually, I think, one of those people where I kept wanting, like when I was a young artist, it's like I would want opportunities to work on great projects, but I hadn't built any great projects to kind of lead to those opportunities. And so like, if you're meeting somebody and you have like a 24-page comic and like, it's not going to possibly like have the same impact as if you're meeting somebody and you have like 80 animations, like, because when Jim, like, if
either way, they don't care. They're like, oh, you're not.
Yeah, that's true. No one cares really at the end of the day.
So I wonder what type of personality, if it matters, like, are you the type of kid that would play with your toys, or are you the type of kid that would display your toys? Like the ones that would display their toys seemed that they would have enough patience that when they finish a project, they can breathe, they can promote it, they can go, the ones that just can't stand that and have to play with the toy and break till it breaks are me. I was definitely I'd play with your toys until they break, kid.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing now with the projects. I'm just going from project to project because it's fun and I feel like I have momentum and I don't want to stop. But I'll just do it till I go blind. So.
I kind of understand that, like, and I think there's some truth to that because thinking about it, I think sometimes that would be the times where you'll have like somebody who's making comics, like even the way they make comics, if they were the type of person who like would pull the comic out of the packaging and just read it till the thing was like beat up.
Yeah.
Or the people who would like kind of keep it really pristine and like never open it, like, cause they want to retain the value and stuff. I do kind of, think like there is I have noticed. It's funny until you mentioned it. I've never noticed that before. But now that I think about it, I think you might be right. There might be a psychology.
This sounds totally D-bag to say this.
Yeah.
By the way, D-bag, if you're watching, what's up, man?
Yeah, how's it going, D-bag? It's been a while.
But
in the house.
I was gonna say, but we're doers. I know that sounds really bad to say. Like it makes it sound like other people aren't doers, but we enjoy like the act of creating. And if you don't think I'm telling the truth, look at Corey. He can't stop. He's animating avocados as we speak. So, by the way, Corey, there are avocados in my new movie, so I'm probably going to sue you just a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll just a little bit.
I knew that there was, and so I put them in my movie before you got them in yours.
Do you have Pomeranians in your movie?
Let me check. Hold on. I don't believe I do.
Okay.
No, I think we're good there. I do have this.
Sorry, guys. I'm just coming up with ideas for my next comic. So Pomeranian avocados. Continue.
And by the way, Josh, that pornography is very distracting. Can you just please?
I was just looking at the oh man.
No, not that pornography. The other pornography, the one that's on your screen.
I do have.
It does get a little saucy on this scene.
A prehistoric squirrel riding a T-Rex.
Wow. Hey, whatever floats your boat, Corey.
Yeah.
I know things are wild in Idaho.
Boat floated.
Okay. Poor Scott. I feel like Scott parents are going to go around hanging out with us.
You know, I could make this like look 50 times worse if I just put like black bars over anything that could potentially look bad, and then people will just really think it is porn.
I think we're gonna make the most distracted Artcasters tonight. But have you seen the inappropriately edited Sesame Street clips?
No, but I want to.
No, I want to see them. Yeah,
just look up the count.
Okay.
And it is great. They just bleep out a totally innocent children's show to make it sound horrible. Yeah.
Oh, before we go any further, this show is sponsored by Turaco Cola. We had
I agree. So Jim, like I think that like there is a weight though to building a body of work, and then like I said, there is a thing that like I can't guarantee it's going to happen, but it's like Corey was kind of touching on this too, where when you do kind of stay faithful to the process of just making the best work you can and kind of let the chips fall where they may. And I think this is honing in a little more on maybe what Jim and I talked about when I first kind of started experiencing this. Like for me, stuff started happening in comics when I just kind of abandoned the idea of stuff happening in comics and just focused on just making really cool comics, and just kind of almost forgot about the objective outside of just like, I'm going to make the best book I can make, and then we'll see where things go. Like if I can get it out there, whatever, but I'm going to first and foremost make the best book I can make. If it's a book I can't market, who cares?
So things go in phases too, because you created Jacobs a while back. Had you not had that driving ambition to keep going, then Jacobs would have never been created. You'd have been starting from scratch.
Exactly. And
you also had that phase though where you promoted it because you were on a roll.
That's
so
true.
You promoted it and that got things rolling.
But it's I think like Scott was saying too, it's like it's important to have those things in like your back pocket, like when things do open up, because again, like even what happened with Jacobs and then the current book that I'm working on kind of came to fruition because of it becomes like this snowball that sort of actually starts building on top of the other thing. And it's like you can't really get a lot of momentum if like you have like one little thing in your ball, right. Which is what I was trying to tell Jim on the couch. I mean, it's just you're not going to get.
You guys know that the company Josh works with is Markovia. The owner's name is Markovia Kemble. I don't know if you guys ever.
I thought it was Kremble.
Kremble, yeah, that's true. I mean, Kremble is
that was the old European pronunciation.
Their fingers kind of everywhere. Yeah, like I think. Jib said, "Let's see. I am better Josh's page. Them shoulders looking tense, girl. You ready for a body massage?" He was adding commentary over my my page here, my saucy page. So I guess I'm just saying, like, I have found that to be true. And like, I do think that like being consistent and kind of jumping from project to project, I agree. You do have to do some promotion, but I think the advantage of building a body of work is like when opportunities arise, you have stuff to deliver. Because the thing that's cool about like what I'm experiencing, and I think we've all experienced a bit, is that like once you kind of crack the door open in something, other opportunities usually come. And again, if you have nothing to show when those other opportunities come, you'll get that one opportunity and then the door closes again for potentially a long period of time until it cracks open again. And then hopefully you have a body of work when other things come. So I do kind of think there's a real strength to kind of that, but I haven't perfectly. I feel like Scott has a better handle on it, on the balance between promoting and that. I do.
Yeah, I think someone said that earlier.
Yeah.
It's almost like that was the premise of the entire show or something.
Look, Kim, you're going to steal my material, at least.
Well,
I want to point something out. We are 44 minutes into the show, we have not let Jim finish introducing the topic.
That's a fair point.
So our topic today is pornography and how it can work for you. If you take the lines out of pornography, it's just a blur. So, and blurred lines are kind of fun. So, no,
So I have a question for you, Jim.
yes.
Since you started to talk, I thought I'd interrupt you. Is it do you look at, I mean, because you describe you and I as similar, and I don't think you're that far off from that. Do you look at that as good, bad, ugly, problematic, productive, immoral, amoral?
So it's funny that this is the first time you ever said that you and I are similar. I'm honored because creatively we're okay. Yes, creatively we are very similar, like as far as our approach and as output and things like that. And
you got significantly more output than I do.
Well, no, but you're always working too.
Sure.
But it's funny because our literal approach to the work is different.
Yeah.
We're way different. But I think as long as it goes in phases, which is what I was touching that Josh does, it's good because then you build up this big reservoir of work, this big catalog, and then you have to lay off at some point and go, I'm going to promote, or something happens and you're like in promotion mode and you've got all of this work to pull from, which is, see, it didn't happen to Josh. I believe Josh made it happen.
Right.
With 2 stories, because if there's no 2 stories, that opportunity for Jacobs is not there. Maybe a different opportunity would come up, but that particular opportunity came because you were on a roll with 2 stories and you already had Jacobs. So in my case and in your case, Corey, we are like so busy building up this body of work that there has to come a time where we stop and go, okay, hammer time.
I'm actually planning on dying first, so
well, you're doing a good job,
I know. Yeah, so I'm trying pretty hard. I mean, so far,
just keep pushing.
I think I've offended Death, and he doesn't want to visit. So, anyway.
Yeah. So
no, I agree, and I remember watching, and Scott, I would put in the same category. Both Scott and Josh, they might not feel like this, but are very good at like follow through past the end of the project into implementation of a marketing campaign or a PR campaign or, doing, whatever. And it's, I mean, if you watch Josh, he's like, oh, I hate doing this. So I've set a goal that I have to reach out to like 1 publication a year or a day or one, or do that. And Scott is like I went to a conference with Scott and I go to conferences and I'm like, cool, just kind of like, let's hang out with some people and watch some stuff and just see what happens. And that's kind of how I live my life. And Scott's like, I want to make sure to talk to these 3 people. And I've set up meetings with them ahead of time, and I've been kind of talking to him, up until this point. And here I am just kind of trailing along like, yeah, sure. And it's, and because I watched that happen because of that, like Scott does very well on design cuts and other types of things. And so I do think there is a difference in kind of like follow through.
And we haven't been to a conference with Scott, but we've all been antiquing with Scott in Pasadena.
That is true.
I so want to do that again. Once it cools down, you were supposed to come out you waited too long. Now it's scorching hot, but
I'm waiting till it gets into 4 digits, the heat.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's true.
We're
waiting till it literally melts your house, Scott.
Right,
and then we'll come and help
I do have a follow-up question for Corey, and only Corey can answer this because the top 2 guys are the subject. Do you think that's an element of professionalism on their part, their approach like that?
I don't know. I think I find vague words really hard to commit to. So like professionalism is one of those words where it's difficult to say, whatever, but they're both getting paid to do it. So yes, but by definition, yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I also think probably the four of us have completely different goals with our artwork as well. Mine
I
being
just want to impress Gary.
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
Honestly,
Right.
I think that's a mutual goal of all of ours. Gary. Gary.
Gosh.
So yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think all four of us could be considered, having professional. As I get a text message in the middle of my own sentence, the three of you could be considered, very professional in a number of ways. And so, yeah, I'd say that, but I don't know if it's professional or if it's just intelligent business practice. So if I were to put like the businessman hat on, I would say I know what to do and how to do it, and I hate doing it so much that I don't bother doing that very much.
I think
I do it for other people all the time, but
the world of the Artcasters crowd has seen the three of you do business. I mean, some of your business formations have happened on air or during broadcasts where you guys have talked about different stages, whereas I don't think anyone has seen me do any business. They don't even know if I do business.
I don't know what you're referring to. When have I done business on the air?
Well, I mean, your animation gigs that you've had and your illustration gigs that you've had and things that you do for the.
You're just talking about client work?
Yes, client work. Yeah. See, I don't have clients, so that's the difference too.
Yeah, but you turn people down.
I turn people on,
Mm-hmm.
and
I was going to say,
turn them down,
and then I turn them out.
Yeah.
Jeez.
When Jim is doing that, like I was saying, when he was saying I don't do business, I was like, that's not what Scott told me.
Corey's blushing. That's why he turned his screen off. So
I just didn't.
You know what? As I said that out loud, the client part, I just realized that actually is true. The three of you have clients. I don't. So
I've also done, professional character design for like an animated television show. I mean,
that would be considered client work.
Yeah.
And I try not to have clients, and Josh tries not to have clients. And Scott keeps saying that he tries
to have one client because it's just too good a client to turn down. But I've been approached by a number of things, and I always turn them away.
Oh yeah, you turn stuff down all the time, but I think you keep saying that you don't want to have clients, but in doing that, you tend to get these incredible clients.
That's the thing. I'm shifting away. Yeah, exactly. I think it's like when you say you don't want something, that's when things come, and it puts you in a position where you can pick the best clients. So it's I'm kind of, there was a point where I'm like, I don't want any more clients, but when you get a great client and now I've kind of got a couple, that
exactly,
so it's but it's I think if you can get yourself in a position where you can turn down stuff, that's when the good stuff starts coming in, I think.
Right.
So
that is true. Like I think the second I was on this book and I have no time and I literally can't take anything for the year till April, that's when for the first time I've had to tell publishers I'm not interested, or I've had publishers reach out and I've been like, would you guys be comfortable with 2 years from now? Maybe we could work on something. And it's weird to be in that position. I'm not saying that as it's almost heartbreaking to be in that position because you try so hard for most of your career to have those doors and those things open. And then it is kind of like the dating thing where people who are desperate for a girlfriend are going to have a really hard time getting a girlfriend. Whereas people who are just kind of comfortable and not looking, that tends to happen. Yeah. It's just a weird thing, but I agree with you. That's kind of a bizarre thing that happens when you do get too busy to take on clients. Suddenly you get these incredible clients. I don't know. Yeah, that's
Gary Hodges has a very good question.
Mm.
Mind?
Yes.
Pull it up. Oh,
That's a good question.
for
He
you,
said,
Jim. Are you not going to answer it?
No one's
is
gonna
your
read it out loud?
aversion to promotion a way to preserve, protect the joy you get out of the creation side?
For me, no. It's just I hate that part, but I don't think it kills the joy I get out of the other part.
And there's a second part of it too. It says,
There's also a first part that said question for Jim. So
it says, hold on. It
Yeah,
says,
it's like, what, Corey? Why are you answering James?
it says Inland Empire. Do you worry promotion, etc., would spoil it for you? I read that horribly.
Where are you looking? Where are you seeing that?
I.e., I'm joking.
So Jim, do you think it's like like Gary was asking, like it's a way of preserving the kind of creative process, like not promoting as much as maybe you feel you should?
Wow. Yeah, probably. He's probably right. The first part is probably right. It's probably because I'm just having so much fun in the creative part of it, and it's work too.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm having so much fun in it that the promotion is like work. And here's the other thing too. Okay, I know that we've probably all had friends, or maybe you were this person that would always say like, oh man, I never cheat on my girlfriend, because that's how you guys talk. And the other part is that it's like, well, nobody's offering themselves to you, so you can't really say that. So with me, when I say the promotion, like I don't want to promote, because that's how I talk. It's like nobody's offering to promote me. I mean, it's not like, talk shows are calling and radio shows are calling me. So I'm not being proactive, but at the same time, so I don't really have an aversion to promotion. I just have an aversion to not being lazy and a preference for laziness. So preference
that promotion is called self-promotion, where people aren't calling you. You just got to promote yourself.
Yeah. And that's where Mr. Kremble is. It's okay if pushing yourself to do self-promotion created abs, you would be ripped, Josh. Ripped. You'd be shredded. 6-pack, 8-pack.
True. I might look like a certain pastor that I did voice work for. I don't know if you've heard of him.
By the way, I have to say this earlier too. Somebody said I think in a previous broadcast said the words sham pastor. And I'm going to use that somehow one day. That's such a good term. Sham pastor.
Oh man, well, if you need inspiration for it, I can make recommendations.
I know.
It is a weird thing where I think that one of the most valuable things that I was ever told, like out of school, was like I had a teacher who kind of mentored me and got me like my first illustration gig. And I was kind of talking to him about like printing up business cards, and he's like, and I'm just like, I don't know, like, why would you it just feels weird, like you're forcing yourself on someone, and it's just kind of sleazy, and like I just don't like the idea of even having a business card. How do you get over that? And he was like, you just have to shamelessly self-promote, like to the point where it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? From this point on, just to get over my hurdle on that, I'm literally going to put on my business card shameless self-promotion. And then I have it on my banner too, because that helps remind me to be a little fearless. Like you don't want to be a dick. You don't want to be the carnival barker in the corner. But at the same time, like, if no one is offering, if someone else is doing the promotion for you or inviting you places and like publishing your work instantly, great, good for you, right? But if that's not happening, that doesn't happen organically for most people. So like, even with 2 stories, like for me, just realizing like, I'm going to get this book out. And if people like it, and that's just going to happen. Like, and then I'm going to try to get a publisher, and that's going to happen.
Oh my God. I just realized something too, Josh.
Yeah.
Do you remember, gosh, there was like a time before Two Stories came out. You were working on that for so long. Remember, we'd always have those conversations?
Yeah.
It's like it didn't happen overnight. You kept pushing and pushing and pushing, getting those abs ripped and and it, I mean, wow, when it, bless you, when it happened, it's amazing. But I'm just thinking right now, it's amazing because now we're living in the post ES days, as I like to call it.
Well, because and you were a huge encouragement at that time, because it's like we used to talk about that, and you would encourage me to just kind of see it through and finish it. Like, because I remember, I think I started hanging out with you guys when I had finished Jacob's, and I was kind of like needing a group. Like, this is back when you were having the meetings, like the clam with an M meetings. And like I was pretty downtrodden from like having lost a publishing deal, and it had felt like this whole like again, like that window had opened and then just gotten shut, and I got shoved out of it. And so like you guys were like a massive encouragement on me, like pursuing the next thing and finishing the next thing and kind of overcoming that, like, that hit that, that is when like, and I've met people who've had that happen too, where they'll sell like a screenplay and they're all excited. They're like, oh man, great, this is going to happen. And then it gets shelved. It's like, but you guys were fundamental in kind of helping me overcome that, because you had given the advice of like, hey, just focus on making a really good thing, and like it will just kind of work.
Okay, on the flip side of the self-deprecation of always saying, oh, we never promote, we just create.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example. 2 Stories, back when it was quarterly stories, which I used to always write Josh about that. Like, why are you calling it quarterly stories? Like, how long are these quarters? Because you've been working on it for so long. But back when you were working on that, you were really putting the work in, getting better and better, and just constantly learning, constantly working, and it just shows in the work. I mean, it shows in your progress. And I think that's something to be said about painters who paint and not just talk to art dealers or galleries on the phone all the time. They're just painting out there, painting all the time. So there is a benefit. You do get better. You do learn your craft. You do experiment more, because it takes time. All this stuff takes time. Just like talking about your work takes time. But it's good to have a good balance. It definitely is. Now, in a weird way, I think all 4 of us and some of the people in the chat room are definitely freaks of nature. And I'll use freak number 3 over here. Corey getting such a late start in art. And it's like, where does that come from?
A late start in illustration. To be fair, I've been around graphics for my whole career.
But you hadn't been drawing though, right?
No, but I mean, I've been doing photography and film and graphic design for a while.
Very scary. What else is Corey capable of? That's what we want to know.
I think anything that you want to do, the only difference between where you are today and where you want to be is time and focused effort. And so the more time and focused effort you can cram into a short period of time. I mean, because when you're talking about, somebody like taking 10 years to learn how to draw, which is what I did. I started when I was 32. I'm 42 now. I feel like I'm close. I've probably got a couple of years. But like when you're talking about learning how to draw or learning how to do anything, if you spend 2 hours a week doing it, then that's going to take you, 30 years. But if you spend 20 hours a week doing it and you already have a foundation of other things that are you can already borrow things that about composition and, contrast and, layout and, those types of things, So I think it's probably unfair to use me as an example of somebody who just came out of the blue blind, because so many of the things that I had already honed, I didn't know how to work. I didn't know how to illustrate, but I knew how to do graphics, and had done so professionally for a while. But the same thing with animation. I figured out After Effects in 100 days. That was my plan. And I got decent at it in about 3 months, and I've been the last 3 years kind of honing that. There's kind of that initial burst of.
By the way, I kind of feel like Scott's staring at me.
I got another screen over here. I'm flipping through stuff.
Easy there, Scott.
Let me see if I can make that even worse, and we'll just kind of do that.
Oh, okay, there you go.
I do feel like Jim, though, like it seems like exactly what you're talking about kind of happens with your cartoons, where it's like I literally I've loved your work for like a long time, and all the way back to like Spike and Mike's Twisted Festival when I was first introduced to it, and it's like and you have a really unique, noticeable style, but like I don't know what happened in the last like 2 cartoons you've done where it's like I should say animations, but it's like where your editing has gotten so like I feel like Cherries in the Snow or something was like this level up in like your editing, where you started like approaching the edit of the animation like an art film, like to a level that I hadn't seen, and suddenly it's just like it gets better every time. And I've had this conversation like off air with like Gary and other people about your animations, where it's like every time you release something, it's just like if you cut like a feature film in that way, it would just be like some weird amazing art house film, because the cinematography, the way you're framing shots, it just gets better and better every time. And it's like you say more with less. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's like I can definitely see you constantly leveling up in what you're doing. And I don't know if that kind of growth happens without, like I see that with Corey too, but I don't know if that growth happens without that consistent output. I don't know. You notice that in your own work, Jim?
Scott and Corey, take notes from Josh. These guys do really good things. And no, Josh, I'm glad you noticed. The real quick answer is around the time I did, actually maybe even right before Cherries in the Snow, I did a film called The Legend of Bobby Churro.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I made a conscious decision back then. I used to have these debates in my head about, should I be doing shorts? Because people like short films, and short content is what sells on the internet, and that's how you build a following, and blah, blah, blah. And I just didn't have the love for it. I didn't have the motivation to do it. And then I just made a choice around the time of Bobby Churro, like, tell a film or tell a story. Just tell the story. If it's 20 minutes, let it be. If it's 15, if it's whatever, and go with the flow. Like make sure that it's watchable and it has a flow to it. So I really stopped caring around the time of Cherries in the Snow. I'm like, let's just go for it. And from then on, I just kind of just decided like it's not the smartest path, but it's the best path for me. So, but Corey, what were you going to say?
I was going to say something along those lines. I noticed in the golf scene of Sugar Machine at the opening scene, I wanted to make fun of you because you've made fun of me so much on those tiny little details. Mm-hmm. You made a point to like have the ball jiggle a little bit as it was like settling into the tee.
Oh, no, I didn't.
And I'm just like, oh, I think I've rubbed off on him a little bit.
Shut up, Corey. And by the way, don't ever say that line to me again. By the way, that last thing you said.
I think 2 films ago that would have been a jump cut. You would have put the ball, but this time you placed the ball and it like settled into the little tee. And I was
Jim,
like,
you really jiggled the balls there.
Yep, you jiggled it. It wiggled a little bit. It settled in.
Well, Corey, if there's one thing that you taught me, it's how to take care of my
shot selection.
Shot selection. Yes, Corey, and I'm the first to admit when we worked on an Unchained Aggression, and you can go watch Breaking the Chains. It was a whole making of series. We always joke and say that, you can watch two artists just going like this, but we really didn't butt heads.
Yeah, no, we didn't.
What we did learn is that I am a butt head. We did learn is that I need to, when I'm working with other people, I absolutely have to conform a little bit more. I can't do my method. So I had to, for example, use a animatic with Corey. It helped the story. It helped the process work better. And yes, I did through osmosis. I learned a lot from you, Corey. I will never animate a cornea, but I did learn a lot.
But you did illustrate a cornea so that I could animate it. So.
I actually did, yes. So I know anatomy now. But I mean, you take inspiration from artists and you take inspiration from your friends and really, truthfully, I was joking earlier, but it is true about the comment about laziness. That's like my kryptonite, is being lazy. And I know that sounds funny because I have such a high output, but it's little steps like that. It's like the little moving that last little movement.
Which movement was that? The ball jiggle?
The ball
Which
jiggle.
Movement? Yeah. Okay. I was just checking.
Thank you guys for joining the Artcasters. This is a show where we talk exclusively about jiggling balls, and we take super chats.
It's a very niche audience.
I was
actually, Josh has an OnlyFans now. So
wow,
it's true. It's only for my fans.
Professional conversation, and
that's true. Jim, as a very serious filmmaker,
as a handsome filmmaker,
so
I must.
Jim, I have definitely seen though, okay, this is a good example of I think the fruit of what you're talking about, with project to project, right? Like one of the perks, and it's gonna sound better, I think, coming from me, because if it came from you, it'd sound like an egotistical brag or something, right? Sure. But this is true about Jim, where it's Jim's very good friend Lonnie helps me get into the NCS, and it's the National Cartoonist Society. It's filled with people who are legendary, like people who've been, had movies made of their books, people who've directed feature films that have been up for Oscars and stuff like that. Jim is invited as a special guest by a lot of these animators and cartoonists that are very huge. And while he's doing his talk, I'm in this room and everyone is completely geeked out by what Jim does. And I don't know if that would be the case if it were just a 5-minute short and that was it. I think it's the fact that Jim has a catalog. He's like that indie band that you find out about, and the second you find out about it, you see this whole backlog of undiscovered albums where you're like, holy crap, this is incredible. How has nobody, you know what I mean? And so my point is, that's how Jim's kind of I've seen that response from cartoonists and animators when they see Jim Lujan's catalog of work, just kind of their minds are blown and they're very impressed by it. And so it's again, I've seen that, I don't know, it's almost equivalent to a bomb drop in a room, and you're like, oh wow, that just blew everybody away. It's crazy.
I feel like I got a sense of what they are wow, they're blown away by, or that I won't say envious of, but they're just, it's the freedom.
Yes,
that's a big factor. The freedom, wow, you just do whatever you want and you make no money. Wow. No, but I mean, they can't do whatever they want. They can say they can, but they really can't, because they are, I mean, and I can do whatever I want, and I do whatever I want. But yeah, there's a trade-off, because those guys have professional careers, and again, good things have happened. I'm not even saying, if I wanted to make a lot of money animating, I could, because I could just do whatever flavor of the month is and make it, fit that, and do the style of humor that's hot at the moment, and just do all of that. I could, and I've turned, like Corey says, I've turned down lots of music videos, but I don't know. It to me, and I've said this on multiple Artcasters. I think I've said, for me, it doesn't work because it doesn't put gas in my tank, in my creative tank. I couldn't do it because I don't have the motivation, and I barely have the energy to do what I'm doing, and I love it, and it still takes a lot of energy. So doing something I don't love, I just don't have the energy for that, and I don't want to become a bitter creator, Yeah. So that's a big, huge factor. It's happiness. It's like and again, I was talking to Dr. Hodges, and we talked about how this is very therapeutic. And that's another big reason I go project to project to project, because it's very therapeutic, and it kind of gives your mind a place to, when things get rough, to kind of escape, Yeah. And that's a big factor, at least for me personally. It gives your mind, it's almost like when you're a kid and summer vacation's coming up. You'll get through class, but summer vacation's there. It's like when I'm working on a project like now, I know it exists and it's going to exist, and I know what's ahead a little bit. So it kind of gives me something to look forward to. And I think I'm wondering if anybody else is like that. Is anybody else with your projects, when you're in between projects, are you not quite as fulfilled? If you're not fulfilled in life, then that's a whole nother thing. But I mean, when you're in between projects, do you have that kind of hunger pang, that feeling? I do when I'm in between projects. I for sure do, but I'm never in between projects. So.
Yeah, I've. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Oh, real quick. Yeah, I have that with my comic, because it's like right now I'm doing all the promotion for the current comic, which I completed months ago. And but I do have that I really do want to start on the next issue and everything. But I usually take a break in between each one, but I don't want to take that break. I should just jump into the next one already, but.
Well, and Philip Chandler has a really good point. His last comment. I mean, it sums up exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, it says back in the day we giggled more at more than just balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you really break that down.
Oh, sorry.
That's just. I don't know what's funnier, his comment or the fact that it was so late coming up.
I love it. Yeah, so like I think the punchline got murdered there. But with the
do it again.
Yeah, let's do it again. Okay, so Philip says
No,
back in the day we giggled more than just balls.
Jiggled. It's jiggled, not giggled. Cut. This kid. Can we get another kid in here? Thanks. All right. And Gary actually has another comment. Mm-hmm. He's not paying me. He says, I definitely need something to do with myself that engrosses me. Okay, where's this going?
Yeah, I think he's talking about the jiggling balls comment for sure.
Whether it's making a comic or building plastic models or playing some video game, or visiting the local junior high and tickling the kids. What, Gary? It got cut off. You can't see that. So.
That was back in his Harry Potter days. He's moved on from
That's
that.
True.
So I definitely experienced. I relate. I don't know if this answers your question, Jim, but it's like I relate a lot to what you were saying about kind of like it being somewhat therapeutic to be working on the next project. One thing I was commenting on recently in like a vlog that I was recording, I was driving to work and I realized that like I'm a person who like struggles with depression and all sorts of issues and stuff, and I haven't really felt depressed for like a long time. And it's not like because like all these amazing things are happening. It's just literally because I have no time. Like I'm constantly having to work on art, and there's something really balancing about that. Like it is very it's very strange, but I relate very heavily to what you're talking about, where it's like when you're kind of doing the shark thing, it is fascinating how much you can't really overthink. And I feel like, to me, like overthinking is like a big source of anxiety or depression for people. And so it does have like huge benefits to be like constantly sort of working on this like
Yeah.
feeling like you're kind of always fighting this like Goliath, or I don't know, your Sisyphean task of like rolling a boulder up a hill, whatever it is. It's an interesting thing to be like constantly working at. Yeah, I don't know. That's a fascinating.
It's almost like it is almost like a band that just keeps playing gigs all the time. They're playing live all the time, and like we're just creating all the time. Except you do stop and do some promotion. Now, if somebody's watching this now on YouTube or at a later date, go back and look. There really are genuinely some really good comments from different folks in the chat room. I'm just seeing them right now, but there are some really good questions and comments and stuff like that. But I do want to know. All right, right here, where to go? John Coyote said, well, he was saying, I thought about art school. I have one in mind. That wasn't the one I was looking at, but
always be open to learning new things. Is that it?
there we go.
Yeah.
Salazar Art Nation says Jeff Lafferty. And I think that sums up a lot right there, too.
I agree with
To
that.
really break it down, like the hidden meaning. So
I think that that like even the thing about learning new things, and this kind of goes back a little bit to something we were talking about with Corey, where Corey, to him, he's like, I was kind of in the creative realm, so like picking up drawing wasn't that hard. And I've heard him make similar kind of comments about how quickly he learned animation. And it's just like some of the stuff Corey pulls off in animation just is, I don't know a lot of animators who can do that solo, like as one human being. But I do think there's something to, like, I've seen Jim, you take on like stories that are wildly, like, you'll literally be like, I'm going to do a story about like a psychic that's like got intrigue and almost feels like it's cut and edited. It has like a vibe of like a Columbo episode. It's really awesome.
yeah.
And I mean that as a compliment, because I think Columbo was incredible. But it's like, I do think by constantly creating stories, it like opens you up to be able to explore other stories more easily, because you're kind of in that adaptive mode of constantly like taking on a new thing.
Well, Gary
Gary
mentioned about like me liking cinema or film, and that's true. And I think with each personal project I take on, it's like me making a new film. So it's like me, instead of doing a series, I'm just making a new film each time. And my little trick is that they are all in the same universe. They all take place in my created universe. So there's always a tie somehow in with something else, a little slight nod to a previous cartoon. I do that for my own fun, because it is fun to have that. Speaking of Jeff Lafferty, Jeff was making the most awesome looking stop motion cartoon, and I need to find that online because it was really cool.
It's called a wolf art. Yeah.
Yes, it looks so cool. Oh my god! So
that was
just wanted to go do a search on that.
That was incredible. I think, do you think there's something to be said for that with the project to project thing, where by kind of working on projects quite frequently, you're also kind of keeping almost like that part of your brain open to be adaptive and like constantly kind of learning new things and evolving? Like Corey, I am guessing there's like an actual psychological thing behind that, and you would be the one guy I know who might actually know how that works with like the pathways of your brain. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there something about kind of like evolving and working and shifting gears and kind of constantly adapting that kind of enables you to enables people to more easily kind of adapt to new things? Or
Yeah, it's called neuroplasticity.
Hmm.
Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to actually physically change based on the task that it's required to do. So your brain, in a lot of ways, acts just like a muscle. And so if I were to work out just the right side of my body, like that guy in that M. Night film, then the right side of my body would get really ripped. You know what I mean? And so they did a study on taxi drivers in London, where there's a part of your brain that does visual spatial reasoning, like the ability to imagine a map. And they noticed that part of your brain was larger in the taxi drivers versus the general population. And so their theory was, well, maybe people who have that ability are just drawn to that thing. But what they found is they did a study on people that were about to become taxi drivers. And I think it was over a 3-year period. And in that first 3 years, that part of their brain physically grew to meet the need of the visual spatial reasoning. So if you, like, neuroplasticity is an ability that we have, but just like all abilities, the more you cause yourself to learn, the better your brain adapts at learning. And so if you like get all crusty and set in your ways, it will actually be a lot more difficult to learn new things. And then, it is actually really easier to learn in the first like 7 to 10 years of your life. There's a significant amount of neuroplasticity that happens in your youth, but you don't have to lose that. You will decrease in ability. You'll never learn like a toddler. But as an adult, you can still increase your neuroplasticity by continuing to add to what is called the rich connection network. And so that's kind of what I was referring to, like I know this and that and this and that. And in my mind, those things are connected. So when I plug another piece in, that piece connects to everything else as well. So it's different than somebody who knows nothing or whatever. And so at this stage in my life and most of your lives, to pick up a new piece of software, a new skill, isn't as difficult as it would be if you were 18 and you didn't know anything, And so that's kind of some of the concepts kind of around that. But yeah, I think it's part of that. Now, if I were to try to pick up math, I don't have a rich connection network and in that area. And so that would be me starting from scratch and be very difficult. And I do believe that some people have a tendency towards or away from certain activities or types of thinking or things like that. And a lot of people might call that talent or whatever, but
do people actually literally compartmentalize things in their brain?
Men do, because we have to, because our corpus callosum is so small. Women almost are not physically. No, your corpus callosum compared to your wife's corpus callosum is, I've heard it described as the difference between a dirt path and the Autobahn. So the corpus callosum is the bundle of fibers that connects hemispheres of your brain. And so men's brains do not multitask at all. It's impossible for us to multitask. We can switch tasks really quickly, but we can't multitask. Whereas women almost don't have the ability. They do a little bit, but almost don't have the ability to compartmentalize. So if something happens in one part of their life, it affects every part of their life. Where if something happens in one part of my life, it doesn't have to spill over into everything else.
So does that kind of cover like hypothetically, if my wife were talking to me while there's something on television and it's hard to focus on what she's saying because the TV's going on, and I'm kind of like
what's actually happening is very quickly your focus is shifting back and forth, but you cannot take in both at the same time. Whereas she knows exactly what's happening.
Can you tell her that real quick?
Sorry, say that.
If I get her, can you tell her that real quick?
Yeah. She is able to watch that TV show, talk to you, and be processing the conversation that she had with her sister that morning at the same time.
Amazing. That's
because her corpus callosum is significantly larger than yours, and so yeah.
I'm gonna say, Leanne, the corpus callosum, man.
But anyway, and that's why men pay a more severe task switching penalty than women do, because women can overlap those tasks, whereas I get in the groove, I get focused, I do my thing, and if I have to switch to something else, they say it can take up to 18 minutes to get kind of back into the groove. That's why I'm a big proponent of what Josh is doing right now, which is like batching things. Because if you're in the penciling stage and you stay in that stage as long as you can, you don't pay as significant a penalty mentally to switch tasks, to go from roughs to pencils to inks to colors to lettering. And then I finished a page. Each time you did that, you probably added several hours to that whole page.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Corey, because starting with Sugar Machine, I began to do all of my artwork for my films first.
Oh, interesting.
Rather than building them as I go. So I decided I'm doing all the artwork, and it worked. And it was nice because I wasn't switching tasks. I was doing all the artwork and then editing the audio, then, doing things in pieces. Now, I really did have another question. And I want you to answer this in a mature way. But why is it when you're in the shower, I feel like Ali G. When you're in the shower and all the ideas are coming into your head. No, but
yeah. Why
is it when you're in the shower?
I wrote a paper on this for my master's.
Oh my God, I want to hear this.
Did you guys plan this section ahead of time? Because
no, Corey, like it's funny because like I have heard this one before, but I'm excited for you to tell it. And honestly, I kind of feel like for Jim, Scott, and myself, it's like a way to show off how smart our friend is. Like, anyhow, because to me, I'm like stunned.
I feel like I know 3 things about the brain, and you guys just asked those 3 questions.
This was not a setup. I did not know. I really want to hear this.
Hey, this Corey guy's smart and stuff. So let's
can we maximize Corey while he explains this to us?
I'll just switch over to my timeline over here if you do that. No, so they have done studies that talk about dang it, you guys, that talk about boredom as a precursor to creativity. And so there's these 2 things called program time and unprogrammed time. Program time is where somebody else is deciding how you think and feel about things. So think about TV and think about movies and think about things. As a filmmaker, Jim, you can pretty much know that certain musical cues and visuals and dialogue will cause people to feel a certain way. You're programming your audience to laugh and to cry and to weep and to tear their hair out, right? You're deciding when that's happening, and so they're being programmed by you, which isn't a bad thing. But if 100% of your program's time, if 100% of your waking hours are program time, you're missing out on something called the default mode network. And the default mode network is what most people would consider daydreaming. And so what happens is when you are bored, when you're not being entertained, when you're in unprogrammed time, your brain immediately shifts into a hyperactivity. And so it actually dilates time to the point where it seems like things are moving slower and everything is way worse, because your brain hates being bored so much that neurologists call this, they have a phrase that said, an idle brain seeks a toy. And so what happens is your brain will begin to look for any problem that it's trying to solve. Like it doesn't want to be bored during the daytime. So you will review a fight that you had a while ago for different, possible outcomes or things that you could have said, which is why a lot of times you'll leave a fight, and it's not like anybody leaves a fight and is like, I feel fine, I'm going to watch a TV show or I'm going to listen to a podcast. You kind of fume and steam a little bit, which is a downtime. You'll switch over to the default mode network, and your brain starts replaying those events. And that's why you always think of like the perfect zinger, like after the fight is over, is because you have downtime to be able to do that. And they did a couple things. One study, and I'll have to explain to the younger viewers, they used to take phone numbers and print them in a book and throw them at your house once a year. And it was called a phone book. And this is when you had cords attached to your phone that went into the wall. And you had, anyway, so this is a while ago that they did this study. They noticed a correlation between boredom and creativity. And so they took a group of people and they said, you take this phone book, copy these numbers out of the phone book. here's a piece of paper and a pencil, just write down phone numbers out of the phone book. And the control group, they let them watch a TV show. And so then they took those groups, the group that watched the TV show, and then the group that copied phone numbers out of the phone book, and the phone book group significantly outperformed the TV show group in a creative task. And the creative task that they were doing is associated dissociative ideas. So like if I were to say American and string, like what are the two things that bring those together? It's cheese, right? That's the connection. And so that kind of thing, right? And so you go through that. So then they said, if you're more bored, are you more creative? And so they took the first group, they let them watch TV. They took the second group, they let them copy numbers out of the phone book. They took the third group and they let them read numbers out of the phone book, but they weren't allowed to do anything else. So then the second group significantly outperformed the first group. The third group significantly outperformed the second group. And so when you go into the shower, it is a very rote task. It's not like it's basically habitual. You've done it so many times that you don't think much about it. It's not like you think, now I'm going to wash my left armpit, and then next I will wash my right armpit because yesterday I started with my right. So I'm going to mix it up. No, you just kind of do it, right? So there's very little.
Work.
What's that?
It's like driving to work.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're just there.
Yeah.
Or if you're driving a path that you normally drive, but you meant to go somewhere else, and you're just on autopilot and you just go right to work, and you're like, oh, sorry, I meant to go to the store or whatever, right? Yeah. So you kind of go into that, and that's the default mode network. Is it switches into autonomic tasks really easily, so that your brain can be engaged in doing other things, and it is a creative state of mind, and in the creative state of mind, in a creative framework, you actually don't have the ability to process time. Time is a very analytical thing. It's numerical, it's logical, it's sequential, and it's exact in its precision. And so when you switch over to a creative mindset, that's why time flies when you're having fun, or you get into a path where you've driven that every day and nobody cuts you off and you don't really think about it. And that drive seems like it took 5 minutes when it took an hour and a half, because it's a well carved groove in your mind, so you don't have to think it out. So the shower is a very routine thing that you do in a very routine, and there's white noise with the water, and there's sensory deprivation because you're usually having the water temperature at a very similar temperature as your body. So you don't even feel different, like the differences in the air temperature or anything like that. I bet you would lose whatever creative thought you might be having if somebody were to dump an ice bucket on your head, or open the door and a cool breeze came in or something. So you're in a sensory deprivation with sound and touch, and a very routine task that puts you into the default mode network. And it's one of the few places in our lives nowadays where you're not being entertained, because we can't even poop without being entertained anymore. Like I remember as a kid, I used to sit on the toilet and we had this wallpaper in front of it in my parents' house, and I would stare at the wallpaper because there was nothing else to do. Like I didn't have a phone. I couldn't play like Tetris or Castle Crashers or whatever on my phone. And I remember I would stare at the wallpaper without blinking long enough that the wallpaper would start to like move a little bit. And that's how bored we were.
You see shapes and like,
yeah, or you stare at the ceiling and you start seeing the shapes.
Hard.
Anyway, so yes, that's why you get creative thoughts, and you would get the same creative thoughts if you were to replicate that. And so lay in a hammock, unplug your phone. I actually challenge my students in a creative thinking section that I teach in a class to, because they've shown significant neurological benefits to your empathy, your moral compass, your creativity, and your long-term memory. If you add 30 minutes a day of default mode network. And so 30 minutes a day of downtime where you're unprogrammed time, you will see a significant increase in what's going on. And if you want to solve a particular creative problem, you introduce that problem before that 30 minutes, and then you will do that. So for me, like when I started doing this comic, I had no ideas. I just kind of sketched these characters, and I thought, oh, that would be kind of fun. That sketching those characters introduced the problem. And then over the next 3 or 4 days, when I was washing the dishes, or when I was doing the laundry, or when I was just driving to work without any music on or whatever, I wrote 7 more comics in my mind, and then I would take out and I would kind of like take the notes of it. So anytime you introduce a problem and then introduce boredom into your life, the boredom will immediately go back to the most pressing creative problem that you have to solve, and it will begin to solve it for you.
Adam was
And
also,
that's why we're here
yeah.
to introduce boredom into your lives.
Yeah, and you're probably also here because your parents were bored at some point in time as well. So
That's true.
Adam in the chat said also he thinks it has something to do with the having no clothes, which actually might have truth to it because I know that's part of sensory deprivation quite often too.
Yep.
And he said, oh, go ahead.
Well, what did Gary say? I was actually planning
to use a future live stream to talk about my experience with sensory deprivation tanks.
And then Adam says, if you wash the dishes with no clothes on, you will get the same results. It's all in the nudity and the white noise, unless your job is washing dishes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true.
It also, I think, depends on where your kitchen window faces when you're doing that as well. That might come into it as well.
That's a fair point. Also, if the dishes are like all very sharp, like if it's all dishes and knives.
Yeah, I don't recommend cooking in that as well. Like deep frying things; those are different tasks.
That's a hard ball to juggle. There is all I'm saying. So, Jim,
I am sorry for my 45-minute answer to such simple questions, but
you know what?
We love that. We love that.
While you were saying that, I thought of a couple of really good stories.
Oh, good. You got so bored. No, actually, that's something that a lot of people, they say that there are 3 places where they have really good ideas: the shower, at school during lectures, and church.
Yeah, you're right. You're not kidding.
And so if you're a spiritual person, I am. I actually think God designed the scriptures to be fairly boring because it opens your mind up to inspiration. So whether you consider that to be, God or the muses or just your brain or the universe or whatever, there is a connection to boring activities and inspiration.
Well, I like meditation, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I kind of think this to kind of bring this back to the main thing is like, I also think like part of that can happen when you're like, say, sort of doing any task that you don't want to be doing. Can, like, to me, I feel like if somebody has trouble getting inspired as a creative, just be like in a scenario where the last thing you're allowed to do is be creative. And that can inspire you actually to like almost out of just revolt. Like if you want to create stuff, like it like for me, one of the most amazing things was just like working a really crappy job. One of my earliest crappy jobs made me want to go to art school more than anything because and it was like literally like an AM PM at doing graveyards, but it's like that will make you want to do creative stuff more than anything if you're a creative,
Yeah. Well, you don't want your airline pilot writing songs though. So,
that's interesting, Josh, because I feel the same way about the farm labor and digging holes.
Yes.
Yeah. I dug a lot of holes in my life and it made me want to do anything other than that.
Yep. But by the way, one thing, if you do wash dishes nude, this is going to happen at some point. At some point. I'm just saying,
brilliant.
Just be careful. No, and by the way, Adam, to be fair to Adam, he said hypothetically speaking. Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Sure. Yeah.
So I hope that's true. So.
Well, you guys, this has been like a really cool conversation. Jim, it's always a pleasure to have you on. And I hope we don't have to wait till the next triple digit to have you back. But I will say
444. You gonna reserve it?
Yeah. Reserve 444 for me. I am not kidding when I say this. I am right now, as soon as this is posted, gonna go play Leanne that clip with about men and women and and then also that the thoughts in the shower thing that's amazing. I'm gonna have to listen to that 3 or 4 times to digest that. But I guess you could have summed it down to one where you could have said meditation because it kind of is meditation. Yeah.
I'll send you I'll send you a link to. I animated my paper instead of writing it.
Wow. Wow.
Because I didn't want to write a paper, so I have a
So
website
cool.
where I animated it in CSS and JavaScript.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. A lot of things that you see on screen are ideas that came to me in shower, or staring at
Mhm.
Corey's wallpaper while I poop in his house when he's not home. So, just saying.
That's actually the dark secret behind all creativity.
The
So,
wallpaper in my parents' house.
should we wrap this up before Josh scrolls down on his photo and then we would get really, really disturbed? So, because that's Josh, you've been getting down tonight, Josh. Bomb
Yes.
chicka bomb bomb. This book's
And you know what's funny? This is about English poets, but I will say it's also an all ages book, so it's not gonna get super saucy, or will it?
way
Stay tuned to find out.
If it's all ages, then there's going to be a knock at your door with the sheriff in a minute because this is a little bit too spicy, Josh. But by the way, Josh, your book's looking amazing.
Thank you.
And it's really fun to watch you creating it live too, by the way.
Awesome. I do think we've been going for about an hour and 45. So I think that overall it's a really good topic to kind of consider. And I think that at the end of the day, you know what? Here's the way we wrap the topic, I think. When you consider the way that you're built, like we were kind of describing at the top, like how everyone's got their own kind of thing where some people are really good at the promotion and maybe not so much at like the output. Some people are really strong at the output and maybe not so much at the promotion. Some people like, I think we all agreed Scott has this like, he's where it all meets perfectly. But it's like,
everyone agrees with that but me. But okay.
But my point is like, I think it's like something that like for me, it's like I can be cognizant of, but I can't change in myself. And so it's good to be aware of like, I think maybe even for the viewers, like for you guys, like consider which way you are and then be aware of like your blind side on that. Like where maybe if you're just on the output thing, like for me, a good way to override that for myself is I will just make lists and then I'll force myself to do something that usually I only do for like 2 days and then forget to do for 2 weeks. And then I remind myself because I look at my list of like the thing I don't want to do, which is send out the query email or whatever. But what I was going to ask just to kind of top it off at the end is like, do you also think that that's like a superpower, the way you're kind of designed in that way? Because I don't know if like, is there a way to consciously change your approach in that kind of way? Or are we just kind of wired to it?
It's a superpower in the same way that Cyclops has a superpower. If he takes his glasses off, it's going to murder every living creature around him. So it's something that's good, but it's very hard to turn that off. So is it a superpower or is it a curse? You tell me.
It.
Yes.
I love it.
I like it. I wouldn't trade it. I like it.
Yeah, I like it too because it gets us more art from Jim Lujan. So, so you guys stay tuned, obviously, for you know, and make sure you guys are following Jim at jimlujan.com on Instagram. Check out all of his cartoons and his YouTube channel, and like you know, keep an eye out. I'm blanking out as to whether you have publicly announced the new title. I think you have. Yes.
The Night Eats Its Own. And you can see preview artwork. There's finished artwork that I'm posting on Patreon, on my Patreon. So go to Jim Lujan on Patreon and all kinds of previews and stuff there. And some fun stuff's coming. So thank you, everybody, for all the nice things you said tonight. That was really cool. Thank you.
Awesome. And you guys make sure you check out Jim's stuff and again, like support it. Thanks to everybody who showed up in the chats too. Corey, where can everybody find your stuff? And also, can can you just kind of like very briefly give a plug for like the comic that you're currently working on? Because I'm really excited about it, and I think the premise is cool.
Josh is more excited about this comic than I am.
I am.
He's a big fan. Yeah, it's called Ye Old Modernity, and Ye Old Modernity is it's a modern problem set in ancient times, and so there's 2 of them out now. And you can see them on my website at coreykerr.com/YOM for Ye Old Modernity. And if you want to be notified when those come out, then you can go to coreykerr.com/email. So the one that I just released and the newsletter that I just released, I explained the concept of like what we think of as technology, most people would view as magic. And so in Ye Old Modernity, if it's technology, then it's going to be represented as sorcery or wizardry or alchemy or something that you equally can't understand. And so there's kind of those types of translations and things. And you have the royalty of that kind of represent like the billionaire class that we have today and things like that. So there's kind of, I'm poking fun at who I assign which roles as well as the jokes themselves. And so if you want to see that, then go to coreykerr.com/YOM, or if you want to be notified of new ones and hear me ramble on about what spawned each joke and books that I read and things that I thought about to do that, then you can get on the newsletter at coreykerr.com/email.
Awesome. And again, like I learn something every time Corey goes on, like when he starts talking about like the shower thing, I will rewatch that as well. And I'll probably end up biting it and stealing it when I'm managing at work because it's great. It's great content.
Josh is going to have a shower installed in his office.
Exactly. Well, there's that too. Although, that would have to replace the couch that we use for our guests.
The casting couch for Artcasters.
I told Corey it's great having smart friends, right? He says, "You tell me."
All right, so Scott has to close us out. So before we get to Scott, I'll just say you're on my channel. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit the bell. I really encourage you guys to hit the bell so you get notifications when I'm about to do a live stream, because I live stream all sorts of hours of the day, and it's a fun. It is a fun experience, and a fun community. And I'm a big fan of the live stream. I think if you guys do that, you'll enjoy it. And then, of course, make sure you've bought Jacob's apartment. But before you do that, if you're a fan of Artcasters, you got here. Let me make this. Let me make my camera full camera. Here we go. Make sure you guys pick this up from Frank Salazar. He's been a supporter of the show, and he did a good job printing up his first professionally offset printed comic. And I'd say support Frank. Anyhow, Scott, where can everybody find your stuff? Particularly if they want to kind of be in touch with like what is coming up with the Kickstarter, and then lastly, how do people keep track of this crazy show that bounces from channel to channel?
Yeah, so you can find my videos on my YouTube channel. Just search CircWorks on YouTube. I've got tons of videos on just advice for creatives and a bunch of stuff like that. I've got a whole series on making comics 101. And then on my website, I've got prints and everything. I've got digital products for making comics, but I also have a newsletter. And if you want to join that newsletter, if you aren't already joined, but if you want to join that newsletter, you'll be informed when I'm ready to go live with my Kickstarter, which right now looks like it'll be probably the second week of August for my comic book Young and the Dead. So that's how to stay in touch with what's going on with that. And that's not the only newsletter I want to talk about, because we have a newsletter for this show too, the Artcasters. And basically this newsletter, it's not spammy or anything, just usually about 30 minutes before we go live, we send out a newsletter with a link to where you can find us, because the way this show works is it rotates between channels. It'll be on Josh's channel, it'll be on my channel, it'll be on Corey's channel or whatever. So you don't always know whose channel is going to be on, and YouTube doesn't always notify people. So if you want to know exactly when we're going to go live, who our guest is going to be, what the topic's going to be, just join that mailing list and we will let you know. So, yeah.
I love it. Cool. Thanks again to everybody in the chats. It was a lively one. And as Jim said earlier, if you guys are watching this after the fact, make sure you scroll through the chats and see some of this juggling. There's been a lot of balls just juggling throughout the chats. All right. With that being said, I don't know how many times we've mentioned that phrase on here, but maybe after the fact, rewatch this and make that a drinking game. Have a good night, you guys, and we will see you guys on the next live stream. And also be careful when you double your numbers, because you might just end up with a Jim Lujan coming your way.
Triple your number.